Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast, the Golden Nugget Podcast. I am your host and your best friend, Anna Golden, and I'm joined by some of your other best friends, Enoch.
Hey.
And a new best friend to the Golden Nugget Podcast, it's Brett Younker.
Yep.
Hello, everybody.
In that moment, I wish I had like audio, like
I know. Somebody
a
on
live
the side.
studio.
Yep. Yep.
I
Some
love it.
crowd noise.
I will
We can
say,
imagine.
whenever I have someone who's on the podcast who has a podcast and I say, welcome to your favorite podcast,
Yeah.
I'm always like,
They're always like, hold on.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
side eye.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
I'm like, welcome to the world's best podcast. And it's like, I also have a
Hey.
podcast.
The Golden Nugget is our favorite podcast.
Wow, thank you for
Yeah.
saying
Sweet.
that.
Mhm.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Brett, we've been so excited to have you on. I was on your podcast, like a few months ago?
Yeah, you were.
Okay,
Mhm.
and then here we are. This
Here we
has
are.
been in the cooker.
It has been.
Yep.
We've been playing this.
Yeah.
We have
Yeah.
been, and we're cooking.
Yeah, highly
Yep.
anticipated guest. Well, I'd love to say fryer, because nuggets,
Of course.
chicken nuggets.
Yep.
Okay.
And on my podcast, Jesus Songs, shout
Yes,
out.
Yes, shout out to Jesus Songs. If you're a songwriter or a worship leader, or you just love listening to worship music, it's such an amazing podcast.
It's not your favorite. Obviously, we know this one is that.
It won't be your
It
favorite,
won't be your
but it'll be in
favorite.
your rotation.
It'll be top 3.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
It's up there.
I'll take that.
We know
I'll
your
take that.
favorite spot is already taken. But
Yeah,
you
but
gotta
if
have
you're
other
looking,
friends, not only
if you're
best
looking
friends.
for like just something to spice it up a little bit.
Oh, this
But
is great.
we talked about this podcast, the Golden Nugget, and we talked about our favorite chicken nuggets.
Yes, we
Yeah.
did, and
Okay.
we kind of wanted to break into that a little bit.
Yeah,
And you have a picture.
I pulled up mine. If we had it, we could put it on a big screen.
Could you?
But I have it on
imagine?
my phone, so zoom in.
Yeah, we'll do a good zoom.
Is that from Kroger?
No, well you can't. I probably can get them at Kroger, but I
So
can buy
you
mine
like
at
the
Costco.
Frozen
Whoa.
nuggets.
It's the Just Bare lightly breaded chicken breast chunks.
Really?
Wow.
No antibiotics ever.
Okay, ever.
No added hormones or steroids. But here's the thing. You get 16 grams of protein per
That'll-
serving.
Oh my gosh.
That'll
Okay, so
do
you
it.
chose like
Yeah.
a healthier nug.
It's a healthier nug. And I'm going to be honest, it's a tastier nug.
Really?
Yeah.
Are these the ones that they say can like mimic the Chick-fil-A ones a hair?
I think they're better. And I say
Well-
that as an Atlanta
Yeah.
guy.
Have you noticed the difference in the chicken at Chick-fil-A? Because they
Oh.
like swapped it.
Has something changed?
It's some
It's like 3D printed chicken.
no.
Oh my gosh.
Chick-fil-A could never. But they they would never do that to
3D
us.
printed.
It's like raccoon ankles.
That's
oh my
so
gosh.
crazy.
I did hear, here's
Wow.
a conspiracy,
Oh.
that
Okay,
have you
here
been
we
to
go.
Burger King lately? I'm sure you haven't.
No, it's been a while.
But they've maybe got a 30-piece.
Can't say that I have.
They've maybe got a 30-piece nugget for
Sure.
$1.99.
That's not food.
No, that
Yeah,
can't be.
everyone's
That's
like,
not
these are
food.
raccoon ankles.
This is
Definitely.
We're back to square
I have a
one.
raccoon problem at my house.
That's scary.
Please.
It is
It's one of
scary.
my worst fears. That'd be her dream.
I love raccoons.
No, why? How?
They're
Trash
so cute.
pandas?
Those little hands.
That's what's terrifying.
You're like, actually, that's what makes them the villain.
That is what makes them the villain. Because they come up to your trash can and they're like, oh, let's see what's in here. And
They're like so conscious.
yeah.
Wait,
Well,
so
he stands up like at late at night, and I could be out in my backyard, and he'll just like come out of the woods, and he's like, and he'll stand up on it. When an animal stands up on their hind legs,
No.
they see you eye to eye.
yeah, and
That's
they're like,
demonic.
and he's like, what's up, bro?
He's like, hey, Brett.
What you put in the trash tonight?
He's like, you got any of those nuggets tonight?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, what are you doing to get rid of them?
I throw rocks at it.
He's back there with a BB gun.
Yeah. I say I don't have a BB gun, so I'm like David, King David.
It's like, what do you do with raccoons? I guess you have to kill them or something?
Well, I hear they're kind of good because they keep rats away. That's what I heard.
They do eat smaller rodents. Or is that possums?
It's
I have a
possums.
possum too.
Well, yeah.
I
wow,
did throw.
you have the whole cast of
Well,
Over the Hedge
I
in the back
do.
of your yard.
A couple squirrels.
Yeah.
Yeah. A fox.
He's like,
Yep.
it's crazy. There's a turtle, a
Yeah.
raccoon,
Yep.
and a possum. I'm like, huh.
Yeah, I talked to all of them.
That's actually how I hear from God.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
No,
Yeah.
I ask people this question all the time, okay? Brett?
Okay.
I'm going to give you this question now.
Okay.
You drive home tonight. It's late. We rode all day. You
Yep.
know, your whole thing. Like, you're a
Yep.
little tired.
Yep.
Let's just say you had traffic on the way home. You pull in.
Yeah.
and you're like, you open your car door, and then little raccoon waltz up.
Yeah.
And he's like, man of God.
Oh, no.
He's like, I have a word for you.
Okay.
Are you going to listen?
I mean, I'm definitely I'm gonna listen, and then I'm gonna throw a rock. He'd be like, "Stay out of my trash can, raccoon."
You're like, you got your rock. You're like, what is it?
What's the word? No,
Say it fast.
here's the thing: in the new heaven and the new earth,
Sure.
are the animals gonna talk?
I think if the Lord loves me the way I know He does, I think they will.
I kind of think in like a Narnia way.
It has to.
Yeah.
There's too many scripture references tying in like animals that I feel like, man, I feel like the Lord talks to animals in heaven.
Well,
I can see that.
I love my dog, and my dog Sergeant Pepper. Shout out to Sergeant Pepper.
Incredible.
I'm a big Beatles fan.
Okay,
obviously.
I love it.
And for those listeners who are in their 20s, the Beatles was this rock band, and they were.
We're having to explain the
I'm
Beatles
like, whoa.
now, huh?
Yeah, I just realized the book right here.
There's a Beatles book right here on the table.
Wow,
No, but
okay.
one of our worship residents here, JJ, shout out. Legit, I'm like educating him on who the Beatles were,
Sure.
and it's not his fault. Like that's like opening a history book and going like, oh, who was this person back in the
No, that's
early
true.
part? You know, it's like
You
it's
just didn't
very
know.
true.
Your screensaver on your phone is your whole family, what, on Abbey Road?
You're right. You're right. Yeah, we were in London, and so I took my kids to go look at Abbey Road. I've toured it, or I've gotten to walk through it before.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing, like
Wow.
all the music that's been made there, and but yeah. But this time we didn't get to tour it. I was just there with my family, so we
Sure.
walked, and we walked on
Recreated the
we recreated the
classic.
So
album
cool.
cover. Right
Wow.
there. So
Wow.
love the Beatles. I think they were just an amazing band. Changed the world, changed
Sure,
music.
Sure.
And all of that. So anyway, Sergeant Pepper, his eyes, my dog now, not the album, but my dog, his eyes, it's like he's like a human, he just like
You
human
know,
eyes.
I say this all the time.
Yeah.
I look at my cat Carl and I'm like, I know you have something to say.
I love that name,
Yeah.
Carl.
look at-
It's such a just a
He's-
man's name.
Middle-aged
Yeah.
white man.
Yes.
He
Yes.
could talk.
Anytime she's alone with him, she's like, "Come on, I know you're there."
I know.
Talk
I'm
to me.
like,
She's like,
I'm like, no one's
Wait,
around.
hold on. This is a twist. What did you dress Carl up for Halloween?
As myself.
So Carl, the picture you showed me of your cat, which I didn't know was a he named Carl.
Yeah.
He
Dressed up, just like as you dress up as your favorite celebrity, Carl dressed up as me.
it's ridiculous.
He had such a beautiful wig.
Was Carl dressed like this under duress?
He actually loved it. He wore it
He
all
got some
night.
catnip.
He wore his sweater all night.
We got him through the night.
Yeah.
Okay.
He actually, I've been putting him in little fits since he was a baby. So he loves it.
He's a little model.
Okay.
He like always knows when to
One
lock
time
it
I
in.
had a photo shoot, and one of the photographers, I bring him everywhere with me.
Yeah.
Like, he's not here today. I'm like, actually, he's here. Bring him out.
Yeah, bring him out.
See?
Like,
His
hand
little
him the
head
mic.
comes out of that bag.
With people at home don't know, but there's like a TV with Zoom ready to go, and we're gonna zoom in with Carl.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Would you think I was so crazy?
Yeah,
It's just a camera in a room
honestly,
with Carl.
I'm here for it. I really am.
Brett's like, I expect it at this point.
Yeah.
No, I had a photo shoot, and one of the
I feel like that's on brand for the Golden Nugget
Oh,
to
it'd have to
zoom
be.
in, Carl.
he'd be
Anything
my dream
unexpected,
co-host. But the shoot, one of the photographers was like a renowned pet photographer.
Okay.
And she was like, which I'm like, how did you get on this shoot? I'm like, is this who we're hiring now? I'm like, we're like, you shoot pets. You can film Anna's next thing. Anyway, she was there and she was like, I've never met a more well-behaved cat. And she asked me if she could
Yeah.
take some pictures of him. And she did.
Yeah.
They're stunning. It's like, he really channeled it.
That's
But
great.
He's like a human being.
But I do believe, like, that would be my dream.
Yeah.
Like, in heaven,
yeah.
I think Carl's going to be there. Do you think Sergeant Pepper's going to be there?
Oh,
Or-
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, he's also said the sinner's prayer. So
That's great.
Carl
yeah.
loves to worship. He actually loves one of y'all's songs. Which one is it? It's Here It Is.
Oh, wow. Deep.
Yeah.
Carl is a deep soul.
He's always
No,
We always
Brett, you have no idea. This is our favorite joke about Carl.
But-
That in the middle of the night we hear him sing, "If all you
ever
ever wanted
was my heart.
the Carl's little cat paws are just
Yeah, Carl.
just lifted.
He has desperation.
Yeah.
He's just in there.
Yeah.
And that's
This
a heart cry of a
Poor,
song.
I know. It's like laying it out before
Yeah.
the Lord.
Carl loves worship.
He does. Honestly, though,
Love
whenever I'm
that.
like,
all creatures.
yeah,
All creatures.
they'll worship, you know.
Yeah.
Every time I'm at the piano and I start playing, Carl just like come underneath it.
Okay.
He loves it. And he loves a little bit of worship.
I love that.
Did you think this is where we'd go today? Or?
I had no idea, but you know what? I'm just in
Open.
the river. Yeah.
All you ever wanted was my heart. Here it is.
Here it is. My little cat heart.
Brett, we want to talk to you a little bit more about you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm like, anyway, more about us.
Great.
And the raccoon.
If you don't know Brett, you probably do from like songs he's written and things he's been a part of. I mean, Brett, you're an amazing writer, worship leader,
for sure.
father, husband,
All the things.
all the things.
Yeah.
Confirmed with your wife. Just wanted to get my sources
Oh,
straight.
you
yeah.
confirmed it
Just
last
to
night?
make sure,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I
you're
wasn't
like- You're
he's
like, hey,
great at
he's
home,
putting out
she's
there on
like,
Instagram that he's a good dad. Is that real?
we're like, how's it really looking at home? But she did confirm, so
Yep.
that's good to
Thank
say.
you, Ansley, for
we
confirming.
love you, Ansley.
Yes.
But you lead an amazing church here in
Yes.
Passion City,
Yes.
and obviously known for passion conferences, passion
Mhm.
music, all the things.
Yes.
And I just love so much something that's so different about y'all's culture. I think because when you go from the outside looking in, it's massive. And
Yeah.
you guys have a major influence, but you all are so humble,
Aw.
and you truly are a church.
Mm.
Like, you really are a group of people that serve the house, that are so submitted under leadership. Like, it's the
Mhm.
most beautiful thing. I remember one year leading at Passion, and I looked, and Christian was holding the door for people at the arena.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you literally just got off the stage.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
any other environment, you kind of set the pace of what it's going to look like when you see people off platform.
Yeah.
Right.
And he just kind of like ripped the rug out under it. It's like, oh no, this isn't like a photo line of like, everybody, I'm just holding the door for you.
That's it. Oh, I love that. You know, we actually call all of our volunteers at our church
Door
door
holders.
holders, literally.
Amazing.
So cool.
Yeah, and you know, I think that's just modeled. Lou and Shelley obviously model that in the way that they lead, and all our leaders and pastors around here. We really want to embody what Psalm 84 talks about. That says, "I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of the Lord than dwell in the tents of the wicked." And when you think about that verse, what it means is like, I just want to be in the house of God.
Yeah.
Like, I want to
Right.
be where He is doing. I want to be a part of His work. But when you think about a doorkeeper, or a door holder, it's like it's somebody who I have seen and tasted the goodness of God, and I'm willing to stand on the outside and hold a door open and to
Yeah,
do the
yeah.
work and to make a way so that others can come and experience God. And so that when to get into like the heart of what you're
Yeah.
feeling and noticing, and that's amazing that you guys feel that and sense that when you come into our world here at Passion. But that's the heart. It's this, that our lives have been so impacted by Jesus,
Yeah, beautiful.
and we want to leverage all of who we are, our gifts, our talents, our leadership, our abilities, anything, all of our life,
Yeah.
so that others can experience Jesus. And so
Yeah.
that's really the heartbeat. And, you know, sometimes that's like Christian literally holding a door for people. So
Yeah.
Which
come
is-
on
Which
in.
is so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
What was your journey with worship or church? Like, were
Yeah.
you raised in church?
I was. My parents are amazing. Shout out Mark
Love.
and Denise.
A lot of shout outs.
Yep.
Shout out.
We love a shout out.
Yeah.
And but I grew up here in Atlanta. We're here, by the way, at Passion City because
Oh, yeah.
Enoch and Anna, they came last night. We're a part of a wonderful night of prayer and worship.
So powerful.
So powerful.
So
Still kind of reeling from it, honestly. And but my mom and dad have grown up here in Atlanta. They both met Jesus as teenagers in the 70s. So kind of like, you know, like when you've seen like all, like the the Jesus People stuff from the
Sure.
70s and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Love
Like,
revival.
yeah, like they were kind of in that wave, but like a Southern Fried Georgia version of it.
Okay,
You know,
love.
we've seen a lot of like the California
Yeah.
Sure.
like kind of stuff, but that what God was doing in their generation, kind of in that same window of just this like grace awakening
Wow.
and a lot of young people coming to faith. My mom and dad that's how they met Jesus, and so
Wow.
and so they raised me in church, went to a Christian school, met Jesus at a young age, and but you know, we walked through stuff. My dad had cancer when I was in 5th grade, and so just faith became really real really fast. Now,
Wow.
through prayer and through you know, my dad had a bone marrow transplant. He's still with us. He was there last night. You know, they were
Oh,
they
wow.
were just
Man,
they were
that's so
going
stunning.
for it last night, and you know, and so. But yeah, just met Jesus at a young age, got baptized, but really middle school and high school, kind of through things like walking through cancer with my family, but then getting around a youth group and just really having a heart to see
Yeah.
my peers come to faith in Jesus, particularly in high school. And that's when me and Christian met each other when we were 14.
You're
Wow.
kidding.
No, we've been friends since like 8th grade, and that's just weird.
It's honestly
so
not
crazy.
normal.
No, it's not normal at all. And
Yeah.
so, but God was doing a lot we grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta, and we had a youth pastor that just believed in God using high school students to reach
So
other high
good,
school students.
so
And
good.
and so he was one who gave us opportunity to play. He saw that we loved music and that we had a bend towards that. Also, my basketball career was ending, and
Oh man.
I know it was tough.
It's just-
You could have
it's
made
coming
it.
to a close.
You know, like Jaylen Brown, who just was like MVP of the NBA
Yeah.
last year.
Of course.
Well, he's younger than me, but he went to my high school.
Oh yeah.
So just to give you like
Yeah.
a
Where's
glimpse
that?
of,
Like Marietta?
I lived in Marietta, but my high school was Wheeler High School.
Oh, gotcha.
And Wheeler Wildcats. They were one state all the time
What
in
team?
basketball.
Wildcats.
Exactly. Not like the High School Musical Wildcats, but like
Not that cool,
not
but
like Troy
See,
wasn't on the
Troy
team.
Bolton, Corbin Blue was Michael Jordan to me. Okay, I knew nothing else.
he barely played.
So, all that to say, I tried out in 9th grade and my basketball career over. So,
Freshman year.
just like that.
So you're like, now I'm gonna pick up my guitar
Let's
for
lean
real.
into music
Yeah,
a little
for
bit.
sure.
And so anyway, all that to say, that's really where we learned how to be leaders and how to lead worship. And we were seeing God do a lot just in the lives of our friends.
Yeah.
And then went to University of South Carolina. You know, my dad was like, you can do whatever you want. You just got to go to school, get a degree. And I was like, you got
Please.
it. And so, but I was leading worship in my college ministry and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of in those years I got around Passion. And obviously I was being touched by the music of Passion, guys like Chris Tomlin and David Crowder, Matt
Totally,
Redman,
totally.
Nathan and Christy Knuckles, Charlie Hall, that music
Wow.
was just shaping me. Like I was experiencing the Lord so powerfully through those songs.
Yeah.
And then, but when you come to Passion, and you guys, obviously, if you've been, you realize that like what's underneath these songs and these gatherings is really like this theological thing of going like, oh, life is all about God. And this
Exactly.
it's a Jesus-centered life. And so growing up in church, great churches, all that kind of stuff, but you can kind of get into this space where you think the gospel is all about me.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's like God loves me, he saved me,
Yeah.
I get to go to
Tools
heaven
to
when I
help
die.
me.
How's it
I
gonna
can
lift
help
me
me in
up?
my life.
Mhm.
I can make good decisions, and all of a sudden you become the center of that story. When I got around Passion, I realized like, oh, in order for God to be God, he has to be the center. Like he has to be the thing that it's all about. And so, and that was just like, oh, even the fact that he loved me, died for me, rose again on my behalf, it's all so that I can worship him
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
I can live for him and that his glory is the end goal of my life. So what I do in my job, where I go to school, everything about my life, my relationships, I do all of those things in a way that would reflect his glory and his
Yeah.
grace in my life. And so that was like turning my life upside down. And so for me, I just felt called into ministry. I just was like, what I'm experiencing of God, I have to do that. Like I have to help people see this too.
Yeah.
And I was into music, and those were the doors of opportunity that were opening
Yeah.
up. But I think the older I get, I just realize like I just want to help people see Like, so it could be here at the Golden Nugget podcast. I just want to help you see Jesus. It could be preaching or teaching. It could be music. It could be whatever. It could be creating a space like we were in last night. Yeah. I just want to help people see and experience God in a way that their mind and their heart are stirred towards Him. And so so anyway, I went to New York City to help plant a church, lived there for a year and a half. That was an amazing experience.
Wow.
And then moved back to Atlanta, had a little band, started writing songs.
The Brett Younker Band.
The Brett Younker Band. It's a pretty creative name. And,
which is a great name. I mean,
it's clear.
It really is.
It's clear.
You wanted everybody to know who's writing the songs.
Let's know whose band this
who's
is.
Who's producing.
Who's funding this.
Yeah, exactly. Not much funding, but but what was so cool, a lot of those guys in that band, we were plugging into Passion City Church in our early days, and we were really loving what God was doing in our city. And so kind of probably 2014, 2015, we had all of us kind of had an opportunity to really lean into what God was doing here at Passion City Church. And ultimately, a lot of that crew, we became Passion Music. And obviously, that's with people like Christian and Melody and just some other amazing guys. And we kind of became what is Passion Music. And
wow.
And obviously, even that iteration has kind of grown into more people like Chittima and Landon, and
cool.
It's really representative of a larger team of people that are serving here at our church. And so those are the men and women that are leading at Passion Conference or anytime Passion comes to come lead worship anywhere. Yeah.
Man, that's your whole character arc is beautiful.
The origin story.
The origin story of it all.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, because we have so many worship leaders who listen to this and people who love writing songs and releasing music and all the things.
Yep.
I talk about this all the time, about how this is the way that I love to say it. It's like there is a side of us that can be super ambitious, and it's like a little monster that we have to starve in ourselves.
It's good.
Through the process of you like getting your own band, obviously the Lord's hand was on it, giving you songs.
Yeah.
And we obviously are also in an industry that you have to like pair industry with worship.
Yeah.
How have you navigated that in your own life of like killing that ambition or feeling like, oh, I need to make this amount of sales, or I need to, you know what I mean? Like the logistics side of things of trying to measure the Lord's hand on something by how many records you sell.
But
Do you know
even
what I mean?
being like a young person on fire for the Lord.
Yeah.
But not letting that energy go into the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. I mean, I definitely have not done that like perfectly. Like,
sure. I mean,
no,
it's been
a
tension. I think for every person who's an artist, it's a tension forever.
Right. Yeah, and I think we live in that tension, and I think what has helped guide me through these years. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it here on the Golden Nugget. I'm 40. I turned 40 this
first
year.
Release of this
I mean, I probably.
It's like Beyonce never said your age before. You're like here on the Golden Nugget podcast.
I know. So I don't know. If that's everyone's like, ew,
great.
like you're wearing the 80s.
Ew is crazy.
It was so crazy.
1900s. But I know it's weird. No, the verses in Matthew 6. It's Sermon on the Mount where Jesus is talking about the kingdom of God, and he's calling us into this greater kingdom. And he says these words. He says, "Seek first the kingdom, and everything else will be added."
Good.
And so, he's saying this in a time. This is actually the song "The Lord Will Provide." It comes out of these verses where Jesus is saying, "Don't worry about your life. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. Don't worry about what you're going to wear." Though you guys these Uggs are amazing, by the way.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
I know he needed to hear that.
but I just publicly.
He's been on the edge about can men wear these Uggs.
Hey, go ahead and drop into the chat how we feel about the Uggs.
Men in Uggs, I think it's great. Also, I tried to dress like you today, Brad.
I know. I know. And I was like, oh, I'm not gonna do the rugby today, and I'm a little more sporty.
He's like a little chill today.
I packed this thinking like, I know what I'm packing this for.
But here's the thing: God says, "Don't worry about what you're going to wear," and He says, "Don't worry about what you're going to eat." Great. And for me, I was genuinely like, especially in my 20s, like, how is this all going to work?
Totally.
I don't know how this is going to work. I have this like burning desire to go serve you in this way, but I don't see how the dots are going to connect. And And Jesus says, listen, if your father, and that's the thing, that's the mind-blowing thing that he's going, God is like a father, and he cares for you. And so he goes, look at the things around you, look at the creation, look at the order around you, let it lead you to the Creator and to see that there's an order to things, and he's holding all of that. So he gives us one thing to do, which is seek the kingdom. And our job is to be agents of that kingdom wherever we go. And so even in that, like, obviously, like, I want to write a song. If I write a song, I want people to hear that song.
Of course.
Like,
That's
not bad.
It's not vain. Yeah,
but
want it to get out.
Exactly. I mean, I'm an artist and I have something to say, and I want to say something that will impact and move people, and that's a good thing. But my seeking, my desiring, my effort, all of that should be in advancing of the kingdom.
Great.
And honestly, where I find that rubber hitting the road is when it's like, ugh, that song didn't work out, or this, or I kind of ran into the roadblock. And so what happens? The seeking the kingdom thing is where you get you elevate and go, yeah, but is the kingdom moving forward? So even like Passion, right? We're a big collective of artists and songwriters and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So we put all our songs into the pot, and we really are trusting that with our leadership and under the leadership of God, that like that the right things in the right time in the right season will get. Sometimes my song doesn't get picked, or whatever, and the reality of that. But again, the heart posture is, but is the kingdom moving forward? Are people experiencing God? Is that my end goal? And as a worship leader and as a songwriter, that really is my end goal. The end goal is not like, oh, did I write a song that everybody knows? The end goal is like, do you see God?
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you experience Jesus?
Beautiful.
Now, I want my energies and efforts to go towards that, but at the end of the day, I could care less if you know my name. I have to wrestle with that in my own spirit.
Course.
But that has to be the thing that you keep putting out in front of yourself. Is like, it's all, I just want people to know Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pushing the kingdom forward.
Yeah.
So good.
That's so good.
Man.
I think of how impactful y'all are of what you release and all of the things you do and massive tours and all of that.
Right.
But priority is still church.
Mm-hmm.
And
The
it's
heart's
pouring
still there.
into people,
Mhm.
and it's every day. It's serving. Like, y'all
Yeah.
are still door holders no matter
Quite
what.
literally.
Yeah, like literally at the stadium you get to play at, you're still holding the door.
Right.
How have you seen that? I talk about this all the time with worship leaders because I'm like, man, when you get the ability to travel and lead, all of your authority comes from the roots that you're pulling from.
Yeah.
And you're connected to such a massive root system. And you get to have a covering when you go.
Yeah.
Now, under the local church, what would you tell the worship leader of like that's traveling, that's doing all the things, maybe even evangelizing and speakers, why making space for the local church and creating that in your life is so important?
That's so good. I think the reason why that's important, especially as a worship leader or a songwriter, is you're going to write. If you're again, your job is to serve the church and to serve the body. So it's really hard to serve something that you're not connected to.
Part of it all.
Right.
Man, yeah.
And that might feel a little controversial in some of these music spaces where it's like, oh, I'm trying to write songs, I'm out here, and just to put on the table, church doesn't have to look like, oh, I'm at Passion City Church, like I'm at this big church that does music and this, that, the other.
Not at all.
But what it does mean is that you're in community, in a faith community, and you have the leadership and shepherds, and you are submitting your life to the community of faith.
Yeah.
And I think in that, one, you become a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and that's huge. We all need that, whether you're a worship leader or not. Like, that's why you need church, is because when you're a part of a community, it's like, you know that thing when you get a text and you're like, oh, I don't really want to hang out. I don't really want to do that.
No, that's
but
real.
when you choose to lean towards that community, that's how it gets built.
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful.
And that's how God works. Either, maybe it's through you, or maybe you're receiving, or maybe, it's like, that's why we need the church in our lives. And God he said, that's how I'm actually going to reach the world.
Right.
And then the other thing is from a just really practically, it's like, I'm a much better songwriter when I'm kind of ear to the ground, of what he's doing in the lives of real people. I think if I live from event to event, like what we did last night was amazing. But that, like, again, for this context for people listening, it was a gathering that our church does that brings the 3 locations of our church around Atlanta together a couple times a year, a couple different, it's not every week. And it's probably 8 times a year that we have that gathering. And that's like kind of one of those like high water marks in the life of our church, like in our year, as our church gathers. But then there's that week to week, Sunday to Sunday. Maybe you're involved in young adults, or maybe you're involved in whatever the ministry is. It's like there's that like, no, I'm kind of like just really connected in, and I think the payoff is when we get, when we get into those spaces and all that kind of stuff. But if you just live from high water mark to high water mark, I think you miss the struggle, you miss the reality, you miss the real life stuff. The
stories.
Yeah, you miss like light really coming into dark places, and God doing surgery and removing sin in people's lives, the process of that. And so, I just think that you're a better artist if you're connected to the community of faith.
No, that's so true. And I was listening to your podcast with Jessie Early, who's an amazing songwriter, worship leader, artist. She's everything.
She's incredible.
She was like, it's kind of hard to write songs for the church if you don't go to church. And it's honestly, it's real that we're seeing that happen.
Yeah.
And I find it so beautiful when it is like, it really just is you keeping your ear to like, what is the Lord doing in our house?
Yep.
And I love, I hear all the time from worship leaders of like, well, our church is kind of small. We write songs for our church. And I'm like, that is just as powerful.
Yeah.
Because the Lord's given you language for your house.
Yeah.
And that's really where it's designed to.
Yeah.
I don't think you get into sessions and you're like, all right, what's the song that the whole world's about to sing? It's like, no, what is the Lord doing in our house?
Yeah.
What's the Lord wanting to do through passion this year?
Right.
And then you release it and see how other houses connect to it. It's beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And, from a songwriting thing, I heard John Mayer say this one time and in an interview, and he was talking about songwriting. And he's like, if I swing for the universe, it's like I just whiff. And I can't. It's when you're trying to do something, it's like, oh, it's going to be so big. And
sure,
like whatever.
Sure.
He goes, but if I write about something as simple as like reaching out for a glass of water, he's like, everybody does that. Like
so good.
And it's like it's
so real.
Yeah, and I think that's that really describes this thing that we're talking about church life. It's like when you're in it with people and you're trying to walk with Jesus and with other people walking with Jesus. Mm-hmm. We share a lot of the same experiences when we do that. And so as a songwriter, and you draw from that, it's like, oh, well, you guys are out in Texas doing that in Dallas, Shoreline, amazing, and you're just trying to build this community. We're doing the same thing here in Atlanta, and so
running into the same problems,
right, experiencing some of those same tensions of life and all of that, and seeing God meet us in some similar spaces. And so when you pull from something that almost feels common or feels routine, chances are everybody else is experiencing that same thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And but I don't know. Why is church important? Why is church important to y'all?
Man, I was thinking as you were saying, you get to do all these incredible things, and it's like you get to the place where it's like you have all this fire for God, and now He's using you. Yeah. And you're like, you kind of get to the place, that tension of like, oh, I don't need to be in the weeds anymore or hear all these stories. And I was just thinking like, man, throughout all the years, through God's faithfulness, like me having to be in those tension-filled situations, in those groups, in those dinners, and all those situations where it's like, man, do I got to do this tonight? Like, that's where God was working on my internal transformation. Yeah. And it was like through the moment of like, I don't want to do this. Yeah. And it's tiresome. And I've been at church all day already.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's like you were saying, like, you get to that place where it's like you don't want to go from high moment to high moment, and it's in those low moments where like the Lord's like, that's actually where I'm working the most on you. So
and where He's shown His faithfulness.
Yeah, I think that's where I've been like, Lord, like keep my heart tender to those moments, because no moment's ever big enough for me to not go and hold that door.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that's just what I'm feeling towards like the body of Christ right now. is just like, I know we're doing all these incredible things, and you guys are literally doing such incredible things, like 60,000 people in an arena for multiple days. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, pulling in people from every coast, like impacting the world, but like keeping that heart of this church of like, this is all about him. He's still the author of this story. So that's just so beautiful to see.
So good.
I think for me, it's what Enoch's saying in the heart of it too, of like, you know, Jimmy Williams.
Yes.
He used to be over Worship Together, the best. Now
he's in all our favorite
California.
videos.
He is. Jimmy Williams.
Thanks,
Shout
Jimmy.
out. We were at a camp this spring, and he was just teaching before the sessions, and he's now at Jesus Culture, and he was like, the most impactful thing to me right now about our church is there's someone on our team that disagrees with everything I say. And he was like, it has just, he's like, it keeps.
That seems productive.
Yeah. And he was like,
it's infuriating.
he was like, it's infuriating to me. But he's like, I cannot be surrounded by people who agree and flatter in everything that I do.
Sure.
And he's like, it's causing me to be like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, if
That's
I
it.
remove myself from a community that's causing me to be like Jesus, I've missed it. I think we leave churches when we feel tension.
Sure.
We leave churches when we feel offense.
Mhm.
But I'm like, these are opportunities where we get to be like Jesus.
That's
If we're
it.
not, if we're only at these high water marks,
Yeah.
where it's like we go in and it's beautiful, y'all's team is incredible. We get to be hosted
Right.
and driven and all these things. And if that's my only experience of church,
Right.
I'm not in church.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is not the
Mhm.
reality. Is it's getting your hands dirty. And the beautiful part of it is like, I say my favorite thing about being home is we get to be prayer partners with people every Sunday
Yeah.
after we get off platform.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
it's seeing the people that I've prayed for week in and week out
Yeah.
for their mom that was diagnosed with cancer. And they're like, man, she got out of the surgery.
Yeah.
There's no more cancer on this scan. We're keeping praying. We're staying in it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, we serve a God of, we talk about all these massive numbers. We still serve the God of the one.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, who leaves the faithful 99 to find the one.
Yep.
And it's when we lose sight of that one, when we lose sight and we put priorities on things that we feel are more impactful.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, we're like, oh, it's more impactful for me to be a part of an event than to me to lead worship Sunday and Sunday. I'm like,
Yeah.
when you're
Right.
talking about these things, I think of like a night like last night's like Thanksgiving.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
It's not every,
Yeah.
you don't always get the china out. You don't always have every single side. Sometimes it just looks like dinner. Like,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
this is what it is. But that's what keeps you fed.
And your favorite
Right.
cousins come in from Dallas.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like
wearing
so
a Dallas
much fun.
Cowboys
I
sweatshirt.
know.
I started a little drama last night.
Like,
Yeah.
it's
I had
The
stoned.
no
Falcons
idea
are
that-
playing, just to, again, context.
Yeah.
Literally on the Sunday that Dallas is in town playing the Falcons, Anna wears a Dallas Cowboys sweatshirt to lead the people of Atlanta.
Literally.
And you know, it was good. It was
She
a
woke up
moment-
and chose
It
violence.
was a moment
I-
for us to all. There's people in the room in Falcons jerseys.
Literally.
Yeah. It's a good
Thankfully, as service started, they lost the Cowboys.
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
But we were heading out, and I warned her, and I'm like, I
And
don't
I
think
was
you
like,
get
no
it.
one
I
cares
turned on
enough.
the game.
Yeah.
And she's
you
like-
did your part.
I did my part.
And I was all, I already planned to wear this outfit. Nobody cares
I
enough.
literally was like, babe, I hope you pray that they lose.
Yeah. But
No, it's so good. And just one thing too, I know, like you're saying, if there are any creatives listening, you know, one thing that I've learned with church, and God's used Passion City in my life, because I think the if your only experience with church is the role that you play, it creates a weird dynamic with your relationship with church.
man,
So like if I only lean into church when somebody asks me to be the worship leader,
man,
and I get that planning center invite,
sure.
what happens if you don't get it? Like what happens if like you don't get chosen to lead at that thing, or you know, even I've just seen you know, just as seasons come and go, it's like, what happens if you're just not in that same season?
Totally.
Well, what does that do with your involvement with church? Where's
Yep.
your place in this
Yep.
community?
This is
And
good.
so
Wow.
I think what it does is like you have to interact with like, why am I a part of this community? Well, I'm part of this community because I believe in Jesus, and so did
Right.
this person, this person, this person. So what that means is I got to get out of a green room, and I've got to go walk around in the lobby. I've got to get plugged into some kind of group, and you know, I love our creative teams, and like here at our church, like our creative teams are almost a church within a church.
Sure.
Like we have a large church, and so, but I always try to encourage people, you know, go find a few teachers that go to your church. Go find a few like salespeople. Go find a few of these people. And again, I just encourage you to do that, because as you're putting together a set, or you're trying to write a song, or you're even just in prayer, you will just have a better sense of where when our church gathers together, it's not just the little circle that is our worship team, or the little circle that is this. And so, and again, as seasons change, or maybe your role shifts and changes, and my roles have shifted and changed over time. They're not and can I just be honest too? You want them to change. You don't want to be in this at 27, 28. I don't think at 38 you want to be doing the exact same thing.
Right, yeah.
And some of you guys are like, please, dear God, I want my role to change. But some of you might find yourself in a role that you absolutely love.
Totally.
But I do think, I think as we grow and as we mature and as we just move into different seasons, that's why I think, like when I was younger, I thought, I'm called to be a worship leader. And I am a worship leader. It's what I do. It's all that kind of stuff. But I found that like underneath that, that's why I said earlier, I feel like I'm here is to help you see and know Jesus and help stir your heart towards God. And what that does is it's opened up possibility for me to go, well, I can do that if I'm preaching, or if I can do that if I'm like, again, creating an environment, helping shepherd a culture, that just, I have so much more flex in like what I'm doing, but I know that the end goal, or like that kind of primary level calling is something. And I think you find that out. You find out what that is over time. And, so like you are so anointed to sing, and all of that. And, but I would even say there's probably more to your life than singing.
Totally.
And so I think that helps us get beyond those like, well, I'm a name your job role.
Yeah.
This
is what I do.
Yeah. I think the calling runs a layer or two under that.
We talk about this all the time on the podcast, calling versus assignment.
Okay, let's go.
And that's where the difference lies in, I used to find so much of my identity in being a worship leader. Mm-hmm. Like if I wasn't leading worship, I felt like I was out of the call on my life, and realizing that the call is universal. Matthew 25, when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. When I was in prison, you came visiting me. Just like what you're saying, of like, it's me to help people see Jesus. Yep. That's the call. So if I'm functioning in that in a season at my job, maybe you work at marketplace kind of job, or you are working in church, but the kids pastor just had a baby, so now you're not leading worship, now you're in kids ministry, and you're like, I'm out of the call of God in my life. It's like, no, friend. The call always remained the same. Your assignment looked different in different seasons. I was talking about us getting married at the beginning of the year, taking time off of traveling, leading worship. If all of my identity is in, quote unquote, Anna Golden music, me releasing and writing songs and doing concerts, then I've missed it. Because now the Lord's called me to a season of being a wife where I need to lay something down. And the tension would have been of like, well, Lord, you're not using me. And it's like, oh no, you're just using me in a different way.
Exactly.
Right.
And finding that identity. And I think in church, as beautiful and as flawed as we are, it's something that's amazing that happens in church, because you just learn that it's like, all right, Lord, wherever you need me. Yeah. If you've ever worked on a church staff, you've done more than one thing.
Yeah.
Like just inevitably.
All your titles are slash something.
Slash.
You've done
creative director slash janitor slash.
You've done more than one
thing. Creative janitor
slash parking.
And that's the reality of ministry. I mean, the average church in America is 200 people, and they actually don't have church staff. So it's like, we obviously are a part of ministries that are massive and get to do all these things, but the reality of most churches, and when you look at a church like that and you're like, oh man, they got it all together. They have the exact same problems you do, just with an LED screen.
Right.
I'm like, this doesn't not touch everyone. It's just different.
They've just got more fog.
Yeah. It's just a little bit more haze. But with all that to say, I just think that the beauty is in, like, we had a serve team conference a couple weeks ago, and a big thing we wanted was none of our serve team to do the prep, because obviously it was a conference, we're setting the table for them. So we're all there like 5 a.m. putting out plates and stuff, and I was like, talking to our host last night, I was like, I love the lamination machine, and I was making the reserve signs for the seats. And I'm like, man, wouldn't it have just been such a missed moment if we all thought we were too good to do that?
Oh yeah.
Right.
And it's like, oh no, I'm a worship leader. I like who
that
someone
ain't my
else.
job.
Yeah, this isn't I don't need to do this.
Right.
And I think that's where we miss the Lord in the moments of like, those are actually been the most impactful moments to me.
Yeah.
It's never been the moments that I've been on stage. It's talking to people after service, like you're saying. It's getting in the lobby. And that thing that you're mentioning of like, you have to remain touchable or you'll never be able to feed his sheep if you don't smell like sheep.
Right. Wow.
There's a disconnect of like, I can't claim to be in it with people if I'm not actually in it with people. And that's where we get filled up by pouring out. It's different. The kingdom of God is backwards. Those who are last will be first. Those who are first will be last. Like everything in the kingdom of God is upside down.
Yeah.
So it's us like taking off our glasses of the world. Daryl Johnson says it in Discipleship on the Edge.
Yeah.
And he's like putting on our glasses of revelation and seeing it through how the Lord sees it. And just seeing his church like that.
So great.
So good.
So beautiful. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about songwriting too
great.
before we get out of there. Just hitting every topic.
Yeah,
you know
let's
what I mean?
just
Oh yeah.
do it.
We have you
Hard-hitting
here.
questions here on the Golden Nugget.
I'm like, and then we're gonna ask you,
A
some
real
more
hit
here.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, Brett, so in 2006 we found this picture of you.
I'm sorry.
Explain
I'm like,
yourself.
you were in a Dallas Cowboys jersey.
No.
You're like, wait.
Yeah.
Your church is like, no.
You flat ironed your hair.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Like, so is it true you had a perm?
Little blowout.
No, I love it. But I wanted to talk about songwriting and just how that cultivated in your life. Was that something that was natural that you felt like just started happening for you? How you processed? Or was it like, oh, I love music, and you just kind of were with people who were songwriting? What did that journey look like to where you are now?
Yeah. I think, again, I ever since like middle school, high school, big impacted by music and those artists that, I grew up listening to a lot of like older music, like even for like Beatles, Dylan, Springsteen, Tom Petty.
Incredible
like,
writers.
Yeah, like U2, like all that kind of stuff where it's like, but for me, those artists were just, they had something to say. And I think I always really connected with that. And then, when I was in college, I was kind of trying to write songs. I, would go and, hear, I would go to things that Louis was leading at and hear things that he was preaching and be like, go try and write a song after that or something like, they weren't anything to write home about. But, so, and I tried to make a little something in college but I remember when I was living in New York, I met a guy who was like a professional songwriter.
Ooh, okay.
Never met one before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you qualify for that?
Well, exactly. And so he was a guy who had gone to Berkeley, and he had got a publishing deal. I never heard of one of those before, because there was like a boy band in the mid 2000s. It was like the post boy band era, but they played real instruments. They were called the Click Five.
Oh, I know Click Five.
You remember the Click Five?
Yeah.
So he wrote a couple of the Click Fives. He went to Berkeley with all those guys.
Got it. So he's got some hits.
So that's what kind of helped him get a publishing deal. So he's living in New York. He came to our church for a little bit, and he was like, he goes, oh, you like you want to be like a David Crowder kind of like, yeah. Okay. So he kind of understood, like, he goes, well, let's just try and write a song. I was like, how do you do that? I thought you had to like belabor over a song and pour out your like journal or whatever. And he's like, no, we can do it in the afternoon. And I was like, what? And
he's like, no, we can do it from 10 to 2.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, go on. And so, went to his house in Brooklyn and, had lunch. And then we went to his apartment and we wrote a song. And I had never done that before like that. And we did that a couple times, not many, but like 2 or 3 times in my year and a half that I was living in New York. But that kind of just got me, okay, I can do that. Like I can take what God is doing in my community or my life and the things I'm processing and try and put that into a song form. And so I had made a few little independent records, and I would try and write songs for these youth groups that I was leading at. And then probably like 2010, I wrote a song that was kind of clicking with the youth group I was leading, and then I would notice like, oh, that's different. This one's different. Like like people. Like something's happening when we sing this song together, different than the other ones.
People are gathering around this one.
Other people were being repulsed by the other ones, and then and then kind of in that same time, this was like 2010. That was a song called like All Things New, and it was just about redemption and restoration and all this stuff. And And then in that same time window is when Passion City Church was getting started. And so I was really and that's just so interested in that. And that's when Passion City Church was starting. Chris Tomlin, Matt Redman, those guys were here in town. And I remember Matt was actually, he helped me finish that song. A lot of it was written with another friend. And then, but Matt just kind of helped, be Matt Redman and help. He's like, let me show you the way, sir.
Classic.
And and Matt's always been a guy like that for me in my life. And, I mean, I was like in his basement, and because they lived in Atlanta at the time, and I was like, I can't believe I'm in Matt Redman's basement. Like, this is crazy. And
this is blowing my mind.
Yeah, and I mean, I had gone to like a songwriters conference that he had done with Louis like years before. I didn't know any of them, and like to fast forward for him to have moved to my hometown, and now we're in a basement, and so those guys brought me close into their process, and that's when I saw like, oh, they write so many songs, because I would hear demos and I'm like, that song's like my best song on my dream day.
And it didn't make the album.
And we've never heard that song.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, I see how they do it. They just write songs all the time. And I would see, Chris would say, he'd be like, we're just trying to help give a voice to what God's doing. We're trying to help people vocalize their worship, their devotion to God. And I was like, that's the goal. And I would watch guys like Chris Tomlin and go like, I'm trying to help have us have something to say when we get together to sing.
Great.
And the goal is for like a non-musical person to come in and sing their heart to God. And
Beautiful.
And that's, you hear that in Chris Tomlin songs.
Totally.
Yeah.
They're super simple.
You can gather around it.
Yeah,
fast.
but they're like, they're deep, and there's something to say. And so, being around guys like them and Louis and Shelley, and they've cultivated such a space and a value for that, and to have songs, and that's so just being a part of that process. And then, probably like 2012, 2013, 2013 was the first Passion album that I had a couple songs that actually like somehow made it to a Passion record, which it was like, what? Like they were there. You can find them. But
I'm like, we'll play them.
Yeah, Burning in My Soul and Come to the Water. And Come to the Water was one me and Christian had written for like the very first student gathering that our church had. And anyway, just over the years, would continue to. It's the same thing of just going, all right, we're gathering together. I mean, you've come to our songwriting camps and different things like that. But again, for us, we're trying to, for our church, and then for that moment at Passion when we gather with all these 18 to 25-year-olds, and then year after year, just seeing God pour out through them. And some songs are meant for like I think there was one year I wrote a song like Shine Like Stars, and it just felt like that song. I think it was the year you were there, and we haven't like carried that song much, but I felt like on that day, that's what that song. It's a great song, but I felt like that was when I would go like, wow, that song was for that day. Yeah. It was for like what God was doing, because it was kind of this thread that got pulled through the conference of, and then there are songs, like Build My Life, and that song is just, it's one of those like, it's just beyond. Me and Pat had written that bridge years and years ago. Before that, it was like 2014. And then he wrote a chorus with Kirby and another pastor. And then he finished the verses with Matt Redman. Again, you're seeing a thread.
Yeah.
But House Fires put it out in 2016. We did it at Passion 2017. And then it was just this like, that song, it's one of those like, it's just a God song that went beyond but anything we would have dreamed of, and then and just, it's amazing to see how that song has helped lift people's eyes to God and the holiness of God and the trusting that God actually loves you, and you can bank on it, you can trust it no matter what feels shaky around you. You can build your life on the love of God, the trustworthiness of God. Where that's gone, it's like that's a God thing. Like who no one could plan it. And so and I love it. I love songwriting. I love going to just dig down in the the mine of God and trying to find some gold. And you know, to me, it's the journey of writing. I love it because it's like if you do it that day, you did the work. Where the songs go, how they're used, what all that's about, like who knows? Like that's up to him. But the fun part is getting together with friends and trying to mine out what that is, and yeah, just seeing God work through it. I mean, that's what an amazing thing.
Man, it's quite miraculous. I always think of that, like when we write a song, I'm like, this morning nothing existed.
Yeah.
And then it's like the Lord just helps cultivate something, even if a song is never released, or like what you said, like how many Dropbox links do you have that just live? I always say,
I'm going to release an album called On My Dropbox.
No, literally.
Exactly.
I want, before I die, I'm just going to be like, here you go. Yeah. Here's all the stuff we never put out.
Here they are.
Just because there are so many songs that live in limbo. But
maybe that's the album title. Live in Limbo.
Yeah, live from limbo.
Yeah.
Here's the songs that almost made it. But it is really beautiful, like what we get to do, and it is what you're saying. I think that you can overcomplicate it, or you can simplify it too much. Of like, man, it is like writing 50 songs for an album of 10 songs, writing 150 songs for a 5-song EP.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just the beauty of just keeping mining it.
Mm-hmm.
And how you're saying, even with Build My Life, how many different hands it landed in before it was ever released. And that's just kind of the beauty of like where the Lord takes a song.
Yeah.
And I mean, churches all over the world still lead that song. I think I led that song like 2 weeks ago at our church.
Yeah.
You did.
It's so beautiful. Do you have a favorite song you've ever written? I hate when
That's
people
what
ask me this. I hate when people ask me this, but I love asking other people because normally it's not the one that's like
the fave,
everywhere.
the fave. Man, that is tough. I mean, I here's what's crazy is I genuinely still like singing "Build My Life." Like it's not like I've moved on. So obviously that's a special one. Couple others. I love singing "Lord Will Provide" right now.
That song
that's
is
one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Like, of all time.
Yeah.
We've had to put that song on hold at our church. We beat it into the ground.
Come on.
I was like, you guys.
We beat the brakes off of it.
I want to be in the room when Shoreline does it because I feel like y'all probably bring the heat on that song.
We beat the brakes off of that song.
We love that song so much. I think they did it this Sunday.
Probably.
Yeah, it was so sweet because Landon was saying he has some family that goes to our church.
Oh,
and
cool.
He's like, they text me every time I do it.
Oh,
like,
my gosh.
You guys been doing it a lot.
And they're blowing Landon up.
I know. They're like,
Landon is so awesome. Fall Like Rain is one that I genuinely love.
I love that one.
It's just such a intimate and personal. Like for me, it's just that thing of like, God, I want to know the fullness of who you are. And Nobody is one. Just singing that is the fun part about Nobody is every time, it doesn't matter if no one's ever heard this song and you kind of lead it. It's like the unfolding. You know when you lead a song and it's just the unfolding of it as it's happening, and then by the time, that bridge is such like a freight train. I had nothing to do with the bridge of that song, but I just
like,
to be clear, but I want to sing it over and over and over and over and over. It's just so victorious, and just the power of the resurrection in our life, and I don't know. It's hard because it's like when you write them and you're like, I love this one for this, and I like this one for this.
It's like it's like kids.
Yeah.
I have no kids, but I made 2 cats.
I have kids. I have 3.
Yeah.
I love them all.
Yeah. But it is something like the connectivity to it. Even when you were talking about, when you were quoting John Mayer of like the personability of a lot of songs. Yeah. I think of like songs that I've written like on this last record with Manasseh, which is what we talked about.
Yeah, I love
Jesus
that
songs.
song.
I was like, this is such a personal story.
Yeah.
And I was like, it really was one of those songs that I never let anybody hear till the night we recorded it.
Yeah.
That when we released it, I was like, well, this is just going to live on this album. I was like, it is one of those things. I'm like, Lord, I'm just being faithful because you gave me this song and I love it. And you told me to put it on this record. Because there are those songs that the Lord's like, you're not going to release that song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like intimate moments with Jesus. But it was so crazy to see the stories come from the connectivity of what I thought would be so hyper personal.
Yeah.
but it was something that others were going through.
For sure.
Man.
And it speaks to that of like when you go to write the most universal and that thing that's like, okay, everybody's going to gather around this versus like, man, sometimes it is those personal songs that people connect to.
Yeah.
And it's that faith and works. I talk about this all the time of songwriting. The works part is we do the work. We work through the song. We write it. We do it prolifically. We as excellent as we can. And then the faith side of it's like, all right, Lord, where do you want to take it?
Right.
And the reality is what I was saying of like, we do serve the God of a one. He'll have you write a song. He'll have you do a full record if it was for one person. Like, and sometimes it's like, all right, Lord.
Sometimes when I'm looking at my streams, I'm like, yeah, I guess that's true. I guess it is for the one.
I'm like, you really made this for the one.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But we have no idea of like where the Lord wants to take something. So I'm just so grateful to hear your side of it. And
truly.
And
so
all the
pure.
things. So much purity on your life, so much wisdom, and just humility. I love what your teacher too, which I was watching all your sermons this morning. I literally was like, Enoch, get in here. I'm like, do you know that Brett speaks all the time? And I was just literally going through all your sermons.
Oh, wow.
It was so powerful. And I love just seeing the hand of God in your life and
same, y'all.
just flows through you.
Same.
We end every podcast with a golden nugget.
Okay.
The golden nugget is like, if you could summarize one little
nugget of wisdom
to share to all of our nuggets. This is it.
Okay. I feel like we've covered.
It can be a summary of something you've said.
Okay.
So it's like if they listen to the whole podcast, it's like, I really want you to go home with this thought, though.
Yeah. I think my new nugget would be that life is full of seasons, but through it all, just keep pursuing Jesus. And so, again, it's kind of that same, I feel like that would be how I'd sum up all of what we've been chatting about is, the season's going to change, things will move around, people, places, all that stuff will change, but through it all, seek the kingdom of God, seek Jesus, everything else will be added, all the things that you're worried about, all the things that you're stressed about, your Father in heaven knows what you need even before you ask it, but just your job, the reason why you're here is to seek the kingdom and reflect that kingdom and to bring that kingdom into the lives of people around you.
Man,
it's so
that's
good.
so beautiful, Brett.
My God.
Thank you so much for doing
Truly.
this and
of
creating
course.
the time.
Thank
yes.
you.
And like, we're so honored that we would have you on here.
I'm honored to be here. I love all the nuggets.
Wow, thank you for saying that.
Go
They
get his
love
favorite
you.
nuggets.
Yeah.
Go get his favorite nuggets.
Yeah, not an ad, but I'm trying to. I'm working.
We need to get you an affiliate link.
I would love.
So you get a little kickback.
I would love that. Yeah.
We're always trying to pull for sponsorships here.
We are.
Anyway, we love y'all so much. We hope that this hour was encouraging, that you feel uplifted, that you were sitting down talking to some of your best friends just about the goodness of God and all the things that surround it. Again,
yeah. Thanks
Brett,
for tuning into your favorite podcast.
Thanks for coming back to your favorite
The one and
podcast.
only.
Your second favorite podcast, Jesus
Could be
Songs.
Jesus songs.
We'll
Go
link
check it out.
everything.
Stream Call on Heaven.
Yeah.
Stream
exactly.
Manasseh.
Listen, we're gonna.
They've
link
already been
everything
streaming
we talked-
Manasseh. Obviously, they were listening to it before they listened
I'd
to the
hope
podcast.
so. I'd hope so.
In
Imagine
prep.
every listener's like, yeah, we
I'm
don't really
sure.
do the music, but I know we love you so much.
Anna has a record. In case you guys
She
didn't
makes
know.
music
I'm like, imagine I just don't talk about that on my podcast.
ever.
Yeah.
But we love you guys so much, and we will see you all next week. Bye.
See y'all. Bye.